Welcome back everyone to the Naughty Dog Reviews. So last week we wrapped up the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, however, we're not done with them just yet. For those of you who don't know, just before Naughty Dog gave up the rights to Crash Bandicoot, they used the last time they had with the IP to create one last game. Rather than sticking with what they knew, they decided to make something completely different. Something nobody really thought they needed until they had it. One thing a little bit different about this review is once I'm done talking about CTR itself, I'm going to go over the remake CTR Nitro Fueled and give you my thoughts on that game as well. So with that out of the way, let's get on with this review of Crash Team Racing and Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. I've always found it kinda odd that Naughty Dog decided to make their last Crash game a kart racer, but as odd as it is, I'm so glad that they did. It's easy to look at Crash Team Racing and just assume that it's another Mario Kart clone, however, that couldn't be further from the truth. Now if you've seen my last review, you know that I love Crash Warped, and that it's my favorite of the Crash trilogy. I played it all throughout my childhood and have tons of nostalgia for it. I didn't even discover Crash Team Racing until a few years ago when I really started getting into watching other people's game reviews on YouTube. I had heard from them that it was actually a really great kart racing game and ended up buying it for the PS1. I'm only telling you this so you know that I have no nostalgia influencing my thoughts on this game and to make it feel more genuine when I say that in my opinion, Crash Team Racing is the best kart racer ever made. Not only that, but it was literally my favorite Crash Bandicoot game, even including the post-Naughty Dog games that I haven't reviewed. I know those are both bold statements, so I'm going to explain to you why I feel that way. Unlike most other kart racers, this game features an adventure mode, meaning it also has a story, so let's start with that. The story of this game is as basic as usual, but this time we have a new villain, Nitrous Oxide, who comes to Earth claiming to be the fastest racer in the galaxy. Oxide challenges Crash and the gang to beat him in a race. He says that if they don't beat him, he's going to turn the world into a concrete parking lot, for whatever reason. I mean, why would you park on a planet that has nothing but parking spots? What would you be doing after you parked? Nothing, because that's all there is. And if you wanted to leave your aircraft there and go to another planet, you can't. Because if you're in a spaceship, that probably means that you can't fly without it. Since we obviously don't want such a horrible fate for our planet, we accept the challenge and begin sharpening our racing skills to eventually face Oxide. We also get to choose between 8 different characters to play as. Since we're facing someone who threatens all life on Earth, 4 of the playable characters are previous villains, including the big bad himself, Dr. Neo Cortex. These characters also have different stats that will affect the way your kart drives, and you can't change characters, so you better choose wisely. Right after the intro cutscene, we're introduced to the game's hub world, where you will be entering all of the races from now on. It's a lot like the warp room format used in the previous games, and it also works really well for this type of game. The area around the levels gives you room to get a feel for the driving before you hop into the races. It's important for this game specifically, as the controls in this game have a lot more depth than you might be used to from other games like this. In fact, the controls are perhaps the most important part of what separates Crash Team Racing from Plumberman Racing. Mario Kart is a game that is great for people who just want something that's easy to pick up and play. It's designed to be something that gives even newcomers a chance to win against people who are already familiar with it. CTR, on the other hand, takes time and practice to get good at. You'll quickly notice this when you realize that even the first level is not exactly easy at first. That is, until you properly learn to utilize your hopping and drift boosting mechanics. These abilities coincide with one another in the same way slide jumps do in the platforming Crash games. On their own, hops can be used to access shortcuts if you time them right on certain parts of the track. If you hop, and then turn your analog stick in either direction while still holding the hop button, you will begin to drift. Drifting alone won't do anything for you, but if you pay attention to the... What? Now drifting alone won't do anything for you, but if you pay attention to the bottom right of the screen, you'll see a gauge that fills up as you drift. Using this allows you to make well-timed button presses that give you a boost each time you perform them. This can be done up to 3 times per drift, and timing it perfectly 3 times in a row gives you an even stronger boost. There are several other mechanics that are important to know about, such as reserves, air braking, and U-turning, but to avoid boring you any further, I won't go into those here. If you are interested in those things, there are plenty of videos that break them each down individually, better than I could anyways. Basically, the controls in this game have a lot of depth, and they're amplified by the tracks that were designed perfectly around using them. Early tracks in this game, such as Crash Cove and Roost Tubes, have built-in curves that allow you to easily practice your drifting. As you get further, the tracks make drift boosting a lot harder to pull off, and encourage you to master other, more complicated mechanics. The tracks were designed so well, and each and every one of them has shortcuts to discover and various other ways to get through them as fast as possible. You could perfect one track, but that doesn't mean you'll be great at the rest of them. Sure, you'll be better since you're at least familiar with the controls, but each track needs to be practiced individually if you want to set a really fast time on them. I really feel like this game benefited from Naughty Dog's experience in making platformers. It has those elements of precisely timed jumps and finding secrets in the form of shortcuts. Even aside from that, they brought back the collectibles that you're familiar with from the other games. CTR has all kinds of things to collect. Each track offers a trophy for simply winning a race, a CTR token for collecting the hidden C, T, and R within a track, as well as winning the race, and finally, a time relic for completing the relic races. Time relics are the same as they were in the last game, but they're even better here. Since the game is all about speed, it's a great challenge to find ways to hit as many of the yellow time crates as you can, while also getting through the level as fast as possible. As you can see, I even went through and got all of the platinum relics this time because it was so much fun to do. Yeah, you can go ahead and pick that jaw up off the floor. Even the colored gems have returned, and you get them from racing in cups unlocked by CTR tokens. Getting these colored gems unlocks 2 more bonus tracks that have 2 more relics to obtain. To add to all of this, there are also boss races between each new hub area. Now the bosses really aren't anything special. They're pretty much just you racing one character who spams a specific power at you constantly to get in your way. Still, it's a nice addition and doesn't hurt the rest of the experience. Now so far, we've only been going over the adventure mode. This game has a few other modes aside from that, but the only one I really want to talk about is the time trials. The time trials are an option separate from the adventure mode where you simply try and get through each track as fast as you possibly can. Once you set a decent time on any track, you unlock N Trophy's Ghost to race. His times can seem difficult at first, but aren't very hard to overcome once you know each track. Beating his ghost unlocks Nitrous Oxide's ghost, and these are a lot more challenging. If you want to beat his times, you need to focus on learning new ways to shave seconds off of your run. If you really want to get better at this game, this is the way to do it. No need to worry about being hit with power-ups all the time, or even being distracted by other racers. It's just you and the track. The only downside is that you don't ever get to unlock Nitrous Oxide as a playable character, even by beating his times. At least you get a cool scrapbook showing a lot of concept art for the game. Hooray. Okay, that's about all I have to say about the original game, so here's the point in the review where I'm going to start talking about the remake, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. The Insane Trilogy didn't change much of the original games, so I didn't really think it was worth going over it on its own. This remake, however, did a lot more to make sure this game stuck around for a while. Nitro Fueled made what is, in my opinion, the best kart racer of all time even better. The simplest addition is the plethora of customization options for both your kart and characters. These work as an extra incentive for completing challenging tasks, as well as something to buy with the currency you earn in this version of the game. For example, getting every platinum relic in the original didn't reward you with anything, but now you unlock a platinum paint job for your kart. This goes great with the addition of the online mode, because that means you get to flex on all the other betas who can't even compete with your drip. Sadly, trying to get into a match isn't as easy as it should be. I can't tell you how many times me and my friends have been ready to start a race, only for the host to leave and disconnect everyone. Still, I've had some great times getting to play this game with my friends. This is one of the few games me and my girlfriend play together, and she also really enjoys it. She always calls people cheaters when they use shortcuts and calls anything in the game that works against her a technicality. In reality, this is just her way of coping with being terrible at the game, but don't tell her I said that. This game also remade every track from CTR's follow-up, Crash Nitro Kart. That means Nitro Fueled has about twice as many tracks as the original. All of this would have been enough, but they didn't stop there. Every month for 8 months, there was a Grand Prix that gave you rewards such as new carts and skins for completing challenges. It's basically the same concept as the Battle Pass from Fortnite that every online multiplayer game uses now. Each of these Grand Prix had their own theme to go with the month, and even a new track to go with that theme. While there aren't going to be any more Grand Prix in this game, they still added a ton of content to this game, making it now have a total of 40 tracks. The last thing I want to mention is that this game added 2 more time trial difficulties even higher than Oxide. First they added Velo, who was the villain in the original Crash Nitro Kart, as a ghost to race. These times were very difficult, but still manageable. Then they had to go and add the developer time trials. These times are insanely difficult. You have to get through all 3 laps on each track while not only making 0 mistakes, but also having to find any possible way you can shave mere milliseconds off your time. I've still only managed to beat about 8 of them because I couldn't handle the stress it was putting on me. However, I'm really glad they added them so that even the best CTR players can have themselves a challenge. With all the content this game has now, the $40 price tag is a miracle. No, seriously, what are you still doing here? Go buy this game. If you have it already and haven't got around to playing it, get to it. You know who you are. So to wrap this up, I want to say, while the original game is fantastic, if you've never played it before, you might as well just play the remake. It perfectly recreates the original experience while also adding tons of new content for you to sink your teeth into. I'm going to give both games their own separate score, and honestly, before the remake existed, I would have given the original a 10 out of 10. However, now that it does exist, I'm going to have to give the original a 9.5 out of 10. Because of all the content the remake added, it quickly became my go-to kart racer. I give Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled a 10 out of 10. Even despite the name being a mouthful. Thank you so much to anyone who stuck around throughout the entire review. At the end of the last video I explained that I started a Patreon page, and again the link will be in the description if you're interested. Since then I got my very first patron, so thank you so much to Matonim for helping me continue to post my silly little gaming opinions. And by opinions I mean objective fact that you can't argue with for any reason whatsoever. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time when I review Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. Until then, stay safe and goodbye.